directly into our study session this evening, which is an information item. This is about a proposed public notice and accountability ballot initiative that has been certified? No, has been allowed. We'll have Karen fill us in on the details here.
Going back and forth a little bit tonight, so
That's
please
fine.
bear with me.
Thank you.
Great. Excuse me, just making sure that I'm working this right. Okay, there it is. Okay,
Can't see more.
great. Okay. Yes, just before close of business day on September 15th, an Emeryville resident submitted a notice of intent to circulate a petition for proposed Emeryville Public Notice and Accountability Initiative. And a copy of the full initiative was attached to your to the staff report that I'm giving right now. Since that time, the proponent of the proposed initiative has also provided the city clerk with a copy of the legal notice required in order to start officially circulating the petition. And so the petition is now formally able to be circulated. And so that if successfully circulated, and the proponent has 180 days to do so before the petition becomes stale, and if the petition receives verified signatures of at least 10% of the number of registered voters in Emeryville, the City Council has the option of either adopting the proposed initiative in its entirety as an ordinance or calling an election no less than 88 days before the proposed election, which means that the earliest regular election that the proposed initiative could be considered by the voters is November 2013. The Council also has the option of calling a special election before then at a cost to be borne separate from the normal election cycle. Sorry about that. Or could place the proposed initiative on any special statewide election if one is scheduled before November 2013. So, for example, if the state decided to put something on the ballot this June in 2013. In general, why is this not working? In general, the proposed initiative would do 5 things. 1, require the city through a mandate that could only be, would be subject to the voters, to continue the Brown Act. That it would also require that the initiative would do 5 things. It would continue city compliance with the Brown Act. It would, which is the state law that regulates open government provisions, portions of which were suspended with the passage of AB 1464, the budget bill. It would mandate by statute current city public notification and information initiatives, such as videotaping city council meetings or audio taping city advisory bodies. It would mandate by statute the expansion or revisions to the existing city public notification and information initiatives, such as requiring information already available on the city's website through meeting minutes. It would also mandate by statute that certain information that's currently compiled and available through public request be posted on the city's website and updated monthly, and mandate by statute certain new initiatives. So just to summarize some of the current city initiatives that would be, most of which would be continued by mandate and only subject to being terminated by a vote of the people, is continued Brown Act compliance. Even though the state no longer requires that cities, public agencies comply with all segments of the Brown Act, because some of them were funded mandates that the state, through the state budget process, the state decided that they could no longer fill that, they could no longer budget that mandate. This city has continued full compliance with the Brown Act, and this would just mandate that we continue to do that. In addition, we have a city website feature called Notify Me, in which the public can subscribe to the City Council and Planning Commission meeting agendas, as well as development project notices. We currently have an RSS feed on our website. The City Council agenda packet is downloadable on the city's website, and paper copies are available at Golden Gate Library, as well as 2 local copy centers. One is located in the North Emeryville area, and the other one is located near the Watergate Market on the peninsula. Advisory bodies' agendas and agenda packets are downloadable from the city's website. City Council and advisory body meetings, general public hearing notices are posted 24/7 on 3 neighborhood bulletin boards. They're located at the Senior Center in the Triangle, Fire Station, I think it's 35 now, used to be Fire Station 2 in North Emeryville, and the police building on the peninsula. And during regular business hours, it's available at City Hall at the front desk. They're posted. Other public notices, such as noise waiver requests or construction bids, are posted and mailed to targeted geographic and/or affected parties. They're not put on our general bulletin boards. They're targeted to those that are impacted. In addition, the city video records many meetings, including the City Council, successor agency, the Community Development Commission of Emeryville, and MESA, the Management of Emeryville Services Authority, the City School Committee, the Planning Commission, and the Zoning Update Committee. ETV, the city's cable public government access channel 27, broadcasts live or by delay, as well as rebroadcast all video recorded meetings. The off-site meetings, such as the City School Committee, are by delay because we do not have broadcast capability from the school district where they are held. Anything that's on ETV is simultaneously streamed through the city's website. So all of the live broadcasts as well as the rebroadcast are streamed on our city website. In addition, since 2009, the City Council videos have been archived on the city website, and can be accessed by members of the public through that. And Planning Commission, City School Committee, and the General Plan Zoning Ordinance Update Committee video archives are available through the City Clerk's office by request. They're not currently available on the city's website.
Is there a cost for those for the public?
DVDs, I believe, are $10 a copy, but these are also rebroadcast 2 or 3 times a week on ETV, and so they can always, you can set your, and now that we have a set schedule, there is the opportunity of broadcast of the public, of recording them on their DVR, on their video machines directly at home and at no cost. Audio advisory bodies have been audio recorded and archived on the city's website since July. City Council, Planning Commission, advisory body minutes, which include legislative actions and member voting records, are on the city's website. And advisory body minutes are also posted on the city's website. The Emeryville Municipal Code in its entirety is posted on the website and updated twice per year on average. And monthly progress reports are posted to the city's website. And these progress reports provide a lot of data. A lot of the police department, for example, does summarizes highlights of the month in terms of police actions. Fire department also provides updates, as well as the Public Works Department, Economic Development Department, and all the departments do a monthly progress report. And additional city information and data, such as traffic incidents or public employee data, are also available by public request. And we routinely get those requests and provide it within 10 days. In addition, the city website homepage includes a news center, a calendar, and an e-news link. The e-news, which is our twice monthly electronic newsletter, is emailed to more than 1,000 subscribers twice per month. In addition to that, it is emailed to several listservs as well. And any other listservs that, as we find out about them, we email them to that. And as I said, there's the information board on ETV is another place where public notices are put, as well as announcements for such things as advisory body vacancies. And in addition, the city does periodic citywide mailings for community meetings and events. Some things that are currently in progress, expected for the November 6th council meeting, staff will be bringing to you a request for a budget appropriation to initiate Code Red, which is an automated web-based notification system. And it is an emergency as well as a non-emergency system. The emergency system works by landline. Automatically, you push those out without having to subscribe to that. So any landline that would be registered under 911, that would automatically be used to push out emergency notifications. But by subscription, residents as well as businesses can have additional ways of being contacted, either for emergency only or for non-emergency notices such as community events, workshops, fairs, whatever it is that the city puts out. And you can subscribe and request that information be provided by voice, by text, by email, or Twitter. And that's something that the staff is planning on bringing to you November 6th. We're finalizing that agreement now. Also in progress is that we're looking at having Planning Commission video recordings linked to agenda packets and posted and archived online, Charlie. As the City Council agendas packets are done now, and that is part of that would be expanding the agreements that we already have with those software programs, updating the licenses, and we expect that that would take approximately 2-3 months in order to put in place once we've looked at what the costs are and whether we probably have to come back to council as well, because I think that agreement was more than $25,000. And also I have started the process with our IT department. We're looking at upgrading the city website. We're at this point going to do, I would say, a somewhat minor upgrade, looking at the look and feel, with more and more requests or expectations that we put more things on our homepage. The way our homepage is now, it really does not lend itself to doing that at all. And so we're going to be looking at some of those options, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to you when we have more information to give you on that. So as I said, the proposed initiative has 5 major components to it, and I will go through some of them briefly. First of all, as I said, that it mandates continuation of the Brown Act, which we already do, and it mandates by statute current, expanded, revised, and new public notice initiatives, which means that any of these things could not be revised by the council or ended in response to changes in community needs, priorities, technology, or budget considerations without voter approval. So monthly online city reports. The proposed initiative mandates that city budget, staffing levels, fee increases, crime, fire, hazardous waste incidents, traffic citations, fine, penalty summaries that are currently compiled by city staff but are possibly not in the proposed mandated format, that they be put in a very specific format. So for example, much of this information, or a good part of this information, is included in the monthly progress reports, but it may be highlights, not a statistical list of every single traffic citation, for example, and it's certainly not compiled in the way that the initiative seems to require. And it would also mandate this information be made available online. Right now, much of this is either available online through the progress reports, but not in the format, or it's something that is available through public request. And it would also require that this be updated monthly. Some expanded revised initiatives. It would require email notification by subscription of any actions affecting specific resident, property, or business owners. There's a couple of issues with this. We've looked at the Code Red subscription service as being probably able to accommodate much of this. However, that there's also a requirement in the proposed initiative that this information be cross-referenced with specific information, such as the official business license name, parcel number, and street address, and that's not something, it's something that I think Code Red can do, but doesn't do on an automated basis. This would all have to be manually put in. Special lists, Code Red can also do special lists as in addition to doing citywide or geographic based targets, and so we would have to do special lists and keep that updated on a monthly basis using current city staff. It would also specify that the City Council and Planning Commission agenda packets be sent by email. One of the questions that we have is that right now what we do is that you can sign up through Notify Me or otherwise through the City Clerk's office to be notified when there's an agenda packet for the City Council available on the website. We do not send the packet by email because it's just too large, so that would be a consideration. That this is something that we already do as far as technology right now easily allows. And that any subsequent agenda-related documents also be sent by email. So this, depending on how it's interpreted, would be not just documents that were provided to council before the deliberation, but documents that are provided, for example, at the meeting. And so that would take a certain amount of staff work to keep up with that and to make those available either by email or by email. It would also require that City Council and Planning Commission voting records be linked to official resolutions and ordinance titles, as well as staff reports. Right now, voting records are captured through the City Council and Planning Commission minutes, and the titles on the resolution are the official titles for the resolutions, but are not necessarily the official title as codified by the ordinances. And right now, our minutes are not linked to the staff report. You would cross-reference that with the agendas. We do expect on one of our later phases of our automated agenda preparation to be able to link the minutes for the City Council meetings. Some of this I already went through. It would also require additional public notices on city bulletin boards. Right now, we only put those public notices that are of general interest, such as public hearings, advisory meeting, and legislative meetings. Interpretation of this would require that all public notice, it says that all public notices required by state or city statute would have to be posted on city bulletin boards. So that would be noise ordinances, a whole range of public notices that right now, construction bids that right now we just send to targeted ordinances. And this does have some implications in terms of budget. Our current bulletin boards are not adequate to do the task, and it's not clear that a paper bulletin board would be large enough to be able to comply with this, and so it may need an electronic kiosk type of board. And it also requires that city ordinances and regulations be updated monthly. Right now, I said we do it about twice a year, and we'd have to look at exactly what the definition of regulations are and how that would take being updated. And I believe all this also has to be put on the website. It would also require, in addition to the 3 bulletin boards that we have now, a bulletin board located at City Hall. Another major so then there's also some new initiatives in addition to expanded initiatives. One, it would require a 10-day advance public notice prior to considering agenda items. There is some ambiguity on whether or not this would only be for those agenda items that have to do with a material impact or a business or a resident or a property owner, or any agenda items. If it's the first, that it's only for material interest, there are some considerations about there being possible liability of how you interpret what that means, and then whether or not the advance public notice was given. If, as I believe the initiative says that you would have to consider, you would have to have 10-day advance public notice for any agenda items for the Planning Commission or the City Council, it would lengthen agenda preparation timelines considerably, and there would be a difficulty in responding to unforeseen or emergency issues. I did put a kind of a sample of, in one color, it's the current agenda preparation process, and I did a parallel look at what it would look like with 10-day notice. Currently, essentially, to kind of summarize it, we start the new, so to speak, agenda process the day after, well, the day of, so like today as a department head meeting, we kind of confirm what we believe will be coming on the next agenda. Tomorrow is when we start our draft agenda preparation process. We get titles, we get staff reports. Thursday we meet, And we're in that cycle, so by next Wednesday, well, not this month, but on usual months, usual time frame, next Wednesday is when council would get the packet, Thursday staff and everyone else gets the packet, and by Friday we have everything online. With a 10-day notice, that timeline is really an overlapping timeline, and there isn't, for example, the ability to respond. So, for example, if something came out of a tonight's meeting, because of the 10-day advance notice, in a month there wasn't a fifth Tuesday like usual, that would mean it could not be followed up by the council at the next agenda, at the next council meeting. So there would be about a 30-day on average gap between when council could take up, it could follow up on issues that either were just follow-up issues or were unforeseen issues that came out of the previous council meeting. In addition, when it comes to establishing special meetings, this would cause an issue. We do have some special meetings, like the upcoming joint special City Council Planning Commission, when you know in advance, and it's a special meeting only because it's outside of the regular schedule. But it's much more, or special meetings like this one, which is just it's on the same day but a different time, and it's agendized separately. But we also have had special meetings to deal with unforeseen or emergency issues. And one of the examples I wanted to give was around the dissolution of the redevelopment agency, in which what the council had to do either to try to protect the public's monies, investment in capital improvement projects, or current or city-owned property, really required very quick turnarounds of meetings with notice as legal under the Brown Act, but certainly not not in a way in which you could do it 10 days notice. And if we had been under this requirement during those times, it could possibly have led to the city losing tens of millions of dollars in redevelopment funds, because the council would be tied, their hands would be tied in terms of responding quickly to unforeseen issues. Would also
Erin, I appreciate your thoroughness, but in the interest of time, are you nearly
Yes,
finished
I am.
with your
Yeah, I can
your presentation?
bring
Thank you.
It would also require simultaneous preparation of council and oversight board agenda packets. And as you know, there are times in which the successor agency, as the council, is trying to kind of make sure that they kind of go first, and then the oversight board follows up with an action, and that would complicate that. It also would require that closed session, these are attorney-client meetings, be auto-recorded. And these are confidential discussions regarding to litigation, personnel, labor, and real estate negotiations that would be subject to disclosure. And this is far and above what is required by state law, which is only that these meetings would be recorded essentially by court order if there had been found to be some violation in how you were using your closed session. And even those have certain guidelines in terms of it still cannot violate the confidentiality clause. This would be very different than that. Lastly, I said I'm almost done, is the fiscal impact. One is staff resources in the departments to compile, post, and maintain all this information. This just does not affect just the city clerk's office. A lot of the information would have to be compiled and maintained and updated by other departments as well. There's the cost of what I think we would have to go to electronic bulletin boards, and those are about $15,000 to $25,000. There's litigation exposure for some of the public noticing, as well as the closed session audio hearings. And in addition, that there could be additional fiscal impact because the bargaining position of the city for labor and real estate negotiations could be compromised if closed session meetings were audio recorded and subject to disclosure. And that does end my presentation.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I would like to open it now to Ken Bukowski if he would like to speak on the ballot measure that he has had approved for circulation. And I know that we had more time, but as looking at the hour, if you could keep your comments as concise as possible.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. It's my pleasure to present this ordinance. I think it's long overdue. As expected, the staff doesn't support this, and it should be noted that the increased costs are mentioned, but every aspect of the suggested impacts are exaggerated, and some of the information provided is not correct. least I don't believe it's correct. I couldn't have Stuart Flashman here tonight because I wasn't aware it was going to be on the agenda tonight. You and I had discussed it some time ago, but once it couldn't be put on the agenda before the measure was crafted, I thought that was moot. So anyway, with only 3 days' notice, Stuart was busy this evening, and so he couldn't be here. As it exists, our neighboring cities have all found it necessary to adopt similar ordinances. Why is that? Because it's really necessary. This is about democracy, really. You know, I think the burden is on government to make sure the community is well informed and thereby encourage participation. The primary purpose of government is to serve the people and encourage participation. Their needs have to have a higher priority than the needs of the staff. If you are a property or a business owner and you pay your taxes, don't you deserve to be notified? I mean, every tax measure the city has put on, even the school bond, none of the property owners are notified. If you live in town, you're notified, but if you own property and you don't live in town, you're not notified. And this ordinance was created because of the North Hollis Underground Utility District. You have 17 property owners who got a 7-day notice that they were going to be paying millions of dollars of assessments. And the deck was already stacked against them. And so this ordinance is really necessary to protect their interests and any other person that's going to be affected or impacted by a city action. This ordinance increases the transparency of city government by requiring useful information to be provided. It's not good enough to say it's on the website, you find it. You need to put it in a place so it's easy for the public to find. I mean, I wanted to get a paper copy of the city agenda packet and pay for it, but I can't do that because it's not in the agenda fee. It's not. There's no fee for it in the schedule, so I can't get a paper copy. Everybody does not have a computer, so all the stuff on the website is not available to people that don't have access to a computer. Okay, providing 10 days advance public notice is very reasonable. There's an 11-day requirement in Berkeley, 10-day requirement in Oakland, 10-day requirement in San Francisco, and all these other cities do it. Why can't Emeryville do it? And the city of Alameda is the most recent city to adopt the same similar requirement. Anyway, this measure is all about accountability and transparency. You know, now, I mean, we don't have public notices at City Hall. I find that so amazing. This is about the only city I know of that doesn't have that. And so now this ordinance doesn't require you to build an electronic bulletin board. I mean, I think that's an exaggeration. It's already in process if you're going to do that, so there's no impact there. The recording of the closed session meetings is really essential because I have reason to believe that we don't always get lawful advice in closed session. And several times when I've wanted to challenge that, there's just no record of it without an audio recording. That would only be available by subpoena. That means that a judge would have to take a look at the evidence and decide that it's warranted, but you need to have a record, just in case you get some advice that's not true or unlawful. We have to hold people accountable. So with that, thank you. And
Thank you very much for your comments. I would like to hear from council, but I'd also like to hear from the public. If you'd like to comment on this ballot initiative and what you've heard here this evening, I'd like to hear from you, and then I'll turn it over to council as well.
Okay, well, this initiative proposal is about transparency in government and here in Emeryville. And I would like to thank Councilmember Kurt Brinkman here tonight for showing us some transparency. You just did it here tonight, and I thought that's much appreciated. That's sort of in the spirit of this initiative, because as the city clerk was telling you all about how onerous this is going to be, about how we can't do 10 days like every other city, about how terrible this ordinance, this initiative is. I was watching Mr. Brinkman, and he was shaking his head the whole time, thereby revealing his bias in a transparent fashion. And so, Mr. Brinkman, I do appreciate that little bit of transparency in government. Thank you for that. Now, I wanted to talk briefly here tonight. The city clerk talked about how this council or this city hall doesn't need more transparency because it's already so transparent, and this city obeys, for instance, the Brown Act to such a high degree that we don't need to do this. Really? Well, just a couple years ago, I came before this body and I had a criticism of Councilmember Davis's public policy. Now, she had initiated some public policy I thought was not advisable, and so I said so. Councilmember Atkin was mayor at the time, and she dropped her gavel and she told me I have to stop speaking because apparently the city at that time had a new rule against citizens being able to criticize the elected officials in a public comment section. Well, that's completely illegal vis-a-vis the Brown Act, and there's ongoing problem with this. That's just one example. Ongoing problem with this city with obeying the Brown Act. It's just, I mean, in all the committees, at the school board still does not obey. The school board meeting still does not obey Brown Act provisions. If you look right now, I'm sure you could find violations right now of the Brown Act. Now, Mr. Biddle, the city attorney, thought that this was fine, that citizens should be taken away from the dais by the sergeant-at-arms, the chief of police, and placed under arrest for criticizing the job performance of their elected officials. This is a couple years ago when the gavel was dropped. Mike Biddle, the city attorney, thought that was fine. Well, clearly that's not fine. So this, obviously the city has a problem with transparency and doesn't clearly understand the Brown Act like other cities do. And I just invite every one of you here to go to, like, one of our neighbors, for instance, Berkeley. Go to Berkeley City Council meetings, see how they comport their public meetings. And you'll notice there's a much higher level of transparency and professionalism, and they don't stand for this kind of nonsense in our neighboring cities, and Oakland also. So Ms. Davis finds this very humorous, to have citizens arrested.
Brian? Are you getting ready to move to Berkeley to
Can you please stop the
enliven?
clock?
Okay, yeah, please don't interrupt the public comments.
I'm sorry, Brian.
Thank you.
So anyway, so of course, so the staff doesn't like this initiative. Well, that's understandable, but I don't think you should believe them. I think that if it costs a little bit extra to have transparency, well, that's the cost of running a government. And so I think you should not be so dismissive, but I do appreciate Mr. Brinkman's shaking his head the whole time while the
Thank
city
you.
attorney was saying how awful this initiative is.
Thanks for your comments. Any further public comment on this issue this evening?
Hi, Judy Timmel. I'm in support of this proposition, and I suppose there are elements that will take time to adopt, but I'm sure that any new proposition like this, staff will eventually be able to adapt. I feel like change is hard. It sounds like it's time that we get on board with the rest of the cities in the East Bay, and we are in so many other ways ahead of the ball. I think now we should do it in this regard as well. There still exists in this town vestiges, rumors of the old days when there were backroom deals, and they may or may not be happening now. It's very hard to know as a member of the public, but I think this would help you all to come up a notch in the public's view and to just present yourselves as really doing what you need to inform the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Richard Ambrose, longtime resident of Emeryville, and I'd like to speak in support of the proposition. And I would like to sign the petition as soon as I can. So I'm all for transparency in government. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments on this item? Okay, I'd like to turn it over now to the City Council to hear comments, and then we'll wrap up this discussion and move into our further items this evening. Council members?
I have a question for either the chief of police or the city attorney. Is there a difference between a subpoena and a court order? And if so, could you describe that?
I'll let Mike go.
Yeah, a subpoena can be issued by a practicing attorney. And then a court order, of course, is an order issued by a judge after some sort of hearing.
So does a subpoena go to a judge for kind of approval before it's issued?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Well, I think I need to clarify why my head was going up and down for Brian. And part of it was, you know, we are looking at doing some things. So in conjunction with this, we are looking at the code red, which I think it's a very good thing for what the city needs. And also the electronic bulletin boards. I agree. We have been talking about the electronic bulletin boards for probably about the past 2 years and trying to find what is going to be on them. And we need to do those things. But I also find it interesting is that really the driving force behind this is the 17 owners of property in town that don't even live in town. So I meant there is I believe, if you're going to have property in a town, if you're going to live in a town, you have to be part of the town, and you have a little obligation to kind of follow what's going on in the town, especially when you own property here. So we will do our best to get the information out, but as a property owner, which I am not, you should also say, hey, what's going on with the property in this town that I own? So, and the last thing is mandates. I just have a tough time with mandates because I think the state of California has been totally over-mandated, and I get concerned when I hear about mandates in this proposal or this item. So those are why I was shaking my head.
Mayor West?
Thank you. Yep.
I believe this was an information item, and I believe it will move forward with the gathering of signatures, and then we'll come, if it's successful, it will come back before the electorate, or first to the council and then the electorate. So I appreciate the information from Karen and from Mr. Bukowski. We have a very full agenda. I would ask that we move forward.
May I ask one question?
Yeah, I'll take it
from staff. And so this is to Karen. I just wanted a clarification. It says that, and this is on page 5, the city began audio recording advisory body meetings in July 2012. Based upon a recent staff review, it takes the city clerk staff approximately an hour to post each audio recorded meeting to the city's website and update the audio archive. What I'm trying to understand there is that why does it take an hour? Is it because of the platform? Is it because of the recorders that we bought?
There's several different reasons, some of which we're trying to get around them. I mean, some of it is just, it's new. So, for example, oftentimes that they're checked out and we don't know what meeting they were used to record. There's no meeting name, there's no date, so you know, we're spending time. So some of that are things that we can work on. Partly it's the platform and the recorders that we buy.
The platform.
So there's, again, it's the website that we have, you know, so it's kind of multiple issues, you know, hopefully, you know, that it would take shorter amounts of time when those changes, but right now it's taking about an hour per meeting.
Okay, and I just want to say that I do think that our website and the platform that we use and the proprietary software that we use is a real hindrance to providing information easily to folks. So I hope that that is being worked on, especially because we're a town without a newspaper. And so you have to do a lot of legwork to be a good citizen around here, and our website doesn't help. You have to really drill down in order to get the information that you want.
Thank you for the comments. And my final comments are that I do appreciate parts of this ballot initiative. I think the 10-day noticing is absolutely a good idea. And I think even for me, I mean, I have the chance then to engage the community on issues before taking a vote here, and I think that that's really important. I am concerned about the staff's interpretation that we would be unable then to hold emergency meetings or urgency motions, and I'm not sure that that's really true, because right now we have a 72-hour noticing requirement, and yet we have the ability to still hold emergency meetings if necessary under the Brown Act. Is that not true?
Yeah, there's two types of meetings in the Brown Act. There's a regular meeting, which requires 72-hour notice, and special meetings, which are for only 24-hour notice.
So I was assuming that this 10-day notice would apply just to the regular meetings, but you're saying that it's not explicitly
Well,
stated.
it's not explicit in there, and even the city clerk and I had sort of a disagreement about further details on which what type of items it might apply to. So the body of the proposed ordinance suggests that it's only for items where you're increasing taxes or affecting the value of property, but then the declaration, the findings in the measures talks about 10 days for any legislative item. So it's sort of inconsistent that way, and it could be read for, as the city clerk says, for any item. So
And I assumed it was any item as well, but that was my
So then-
non-legal interpretation
So
of it.
then you would not have the ability to have special meetings on, you could still have a special meeting, but it would still have to be noticed for 10 days. And the distinction between a special and a regular meeting is, as you know, we have in our, in our rules, and I believe in the municipal code as well, that your regular meetings are the first and third Tuesday of every month. So you've set that, and then special meetings are meetings on any other date. So.
Okay. Do you want to respond to
Yeah,
that
just a quick
question or
response.
clarification?
This does require compliance with the Brown Act, and the Brown Act provides for urgency meetings, just like all the other cities do. So it's not unusual. It could, like he says, it could be interpreted the other way, but I don't think it will be interpreted the other way. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. If there are no further comments from council, I appreciate having the opportunity to learn about the ballot initiative, and as Councilmember Davis said, we will hear more about it in the future as well.